The 2025 Honda Civic. As the title suggests, this is one of the best cars currently sold today for its price point, and now they've added a hybrid version. 2 trim levels available in sedan or hatchback. Starts at about 28 grand, and you can move this all the way up to 32,000 before destination with this new optional paint color, Blue Lagoon Pearl. So regardless of what you choose, I'm going to try to explain why you'd want to spend more money for the hybrid version of this in the shop and during the drive. The exterior has been updated for 25. Like many mid-cycle updates, it gets changes to bumpers, it gets changes to taillights. Depending on your trim level, you can get the smoked taillights in the sedan. The point is, this generation Civic has always looked very well done from the start. There's not much to change other than wheel colors and maybe tire options, all that. But really, this is still a solid car with many improvements. Now let's get into interior usability and features. The lower trim level, you get cloth seats, but you can choose gray or black. You get a standard moonroof, dual zone climate control, and you get Android Automotive. However, it's only wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and no premium audio system. When you move up to the Sport Touring trim, that's where you get the leather seat options. Again, gray or black. You get the Bose audio system, which I'll talk about in a minute. You get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a big thing, and a wireless charging pad along with the dual zone climate control. There's other little features here and there that it's adding, but it's mostly a Civic that you've known that we've talked about quite a bit. The pros are, this has to be one of the most friendly for tall people. It is unbelievable how low the seat goes, how much legroom you have, how much headroom you have, including the back seats being usable. This is more like a full-size car or a mid-size car than a compact car. It absolutely annihilates the Corolla. It definitely feels far more usable than the Elantra, and the trunk is very, very usable. And if you opt for the hatchback, it's like a small CUV. It's the thing that we love about the Civic. Now, on the hybrid versions, they've made it more quiet. They've integrated active noise cancellation, which we saw in the Accord, which brings down certain frequencies that grate on you when you're driving. It's constantly trying to filter those out. While the overall peak decibel level might be just as average as a normal touring Civic, they're able to get rid of those jarring frequencies that, again, fatigue you while driving. On the upper trim level, you get a different wheel design that helps mitigate road noise, and most of this underbody is covered up, as you will see. It's a very, very refined car with the fact that it is hybrid and can run mostly in EV mode, has a electric air AC compressor, so you can run the AC when the engine's off. There's all these thoughts to detail there. Now, in terms of the audio system, I've retested the Bose with the active noise cancellation to see how it tests, and it tests very well for this price point. It is pretty linear in terms of bass response. Yes, there's an elevation, but there's not this huge plateau and doesn't come crashing down. So they did a good job balancing it out. There's some phase or cancellation issues near 1K, but again, it's definitely a great sounding system. For $28,000 to $30,000, it's really unrivaled, and there's so many things you're going to love about this interior space. We're going to head in the shop. We're going to talk about the mechanical stuff before I take it for a drive. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to get long-winded. I'm going to give you a crash course on the Civic Hybrid drivetrain for the sedan and hatchback. Before I do that, I'm going to talk about the 25 model year changes, and oftentimes brands do this as manufacturing improvements gets rolled into the design because cars are out for a while. So 2 things they did: side sill support improvements in the middle and the rear of the car to improve their side impact crash test scores. The other thing they've done is increase structural rigidity, but all of this was to make the car feel more substantial. They've also retuned dampers and spring rates. Oftentimes when a car gets more rigid, they can back off on the spring rate and the damper profiles to make the car more comfortable. They've improved the upper suspension mounts or strut mounts. They are stiffer. The subframe mounting is more rigid in the front, and the rear gets lower suspension mount improvements or increase in bushing stiffness. So all these little details are supposed to make it a better driving car. Now, the other thing they've done is for the hybrid version specifically, they've added active noise cancellation to improve the refinement of the interior, because now you have an electric motor, gasoline engine, so they have to approach that a bit different. They've added lower rolling resistance tires. On the upper touring trim level, it borrows the wheels that you got from the Accord, where they have a hollowed out channel to reduce road pinging or road noise through the wheels. But again, that's only available on the upper trim level. All right, let's talk about the hybrid drive system. This is not the multi-generation old Civic Hybrid of the past, where they used a nickel metal hydride pack or an electric motor to assist the gasoline engine. Those days are gone. This is completely the opposite design. It's borrowed directly out of the brand new Honda Accord Hybrid that we talked about in the past and implanted here. 200 horsepower, 232 pounds of torque. It uses 2 electric motors, a 2-liter naturally aspirated Atkinson cycle engine, no turbos, and a lithium-ion pack. The first electric motor is purely there to drive the wheels. It is direct drive. It operates like an electric car. It can supply power from 0 miles an hour all the way to its top speed, assuming you have enough state of charge to do that. The second electric motor is just there as a generator unit. It will supply supplemental power to the primary drive motor if the battery level is too low, or it will be used to charge the battery pack. The gasoline engine comes in, and it is on a multi-plate clutch where it can couple or decouple to the front wheels over 42 or 43 miles an hour. And that's because of the gearing that it is on. It's a higher gear ratio. So it will only supply power over a certain amount of miles per hour. Otherwise, it would just lug and it wouldn't work. But in that decoupled state, it's there to spin up that generator unit to help charge the battery. That's what's spinning the generator. And the engine, the goal of that Honda had for this engine is it to be super efficient. It's one of the most efficient engines on the planet. And that's one of the reasons why this car is helped to get almost 50 miles per gallon or 47 combined. And that's really good for a car of this size. But that gasoline engine will sit in that optimal RPM state so you're not burning up fuel. Let's take it for a drive. Setting off in the Civic Hybrid, there's 2 ways that the drivetrain will calibrate its performance based on how you launch. If you press the brake pedal down, hold the gas, brake torque it, it'll go full-blown maximum RPM from the engine and just hold it there like what you would expect from a traditional CVT. It's the most efficient way. However, if you just do a normal launch, it does the fake shift procedure. And the fake shifts are so realistic that it feels like a regular car, like I said in the shop. And that's one of the best things about this. Now, I will say that fake shifting parameter feels a little bit more aggressive than it did in the Accord we drove. It's simulating much shorter gear ratios most of the time. So if I just put my foot down, it's going to try to short shift and shift as fast as possible. So again, just something to note. It does everything in the background for you. It manages the state of charge, so you never have to plug this in. There's no way to plug it in. It's always regenerating the battery power for you. And the way that it's doing that is you'll see that gauge stay at a lower state if you're putting around town. But once you get above 50 miles an hour, then you really see the battery state go up, because that gasoline engine usually is kicking on, regenerating or sending power back to the battery, so it maintains a higher state of charge. The one thing that this is different from the Accord is the paddles here. You can pull them left or right to change the amount of regen. You pull on the downshift paddle and you can do a multi-stage effect of how much you want it to regen. The great thing about this is it doesn't affect the braking. The braking doesn't have blended braking, so you don't get in the pedal and feel this weird like herky-jerky. The brake pedal feels the same every time. But if you want some downshifting effect or regen effect, you pull that left paddle, the downshift, and when you come off the throttle, the car slows itself down. And this is really helpful for downhill driving because this car has so much coast power, like just keeps itself going. When you take your foot off the throttle, the downhill, you be constantly on the brakes. So this gives you the nice ability to pull the paddle, to let the car use regen, to get the car to slow itself down. Now, the one thing is, you can't get it to hold. You have to be in sport mode for it to manually hold that regen state. There's no way to physically just make it stay there unless you're in sport mode. Otherwise, it goes back to normal every time in normal and econ mode. But I'd say that the drivetrain does a tremendous job at 1, giving you the torque off the line, and 2, staying in EV mode as much as possible. That's the secret of the refinement of this. Like right now, I'm at a stop. It's got an electric AC compressor, so the AC is still running. The gasoline engine's in the background when it does start. It's not really annoying at all. And when it's running at a minimal state to recharge that battery. So just putting around, you're basically in like an electric car. That's what it feels like. And there's enough torque and enough power from the electric motor to kind of just keep you going, just to get you going without really needing to lean into the gasoline engine. Now, the gasoline engine doesn't supply its maximum power until you get over that 40-ish, 45 miles an hour. And that's where you feel the most amount of power. When that winds up, you put your foot down, then there's that quick shifting effect from the way that it's programmed. Now, in terms of Driving quality, it's really refined. It's quieter than it used to be. You can thank active noise cancellation for a lot of that. The wheels on this car also have that channel in them to reduce that pinging noise from the road. I think it does a tremendous job at giving you the quiet, refined, soft ride. The seats are really plush. It's damped well. It still feels rather nimble to get around as well, which is one of the things that I like. It doesn't strip away everything. It doesn't feel completely boring to drive. It's just the right amount of power. It's got just the right amount of comfort. It blends almost everything great. This is, I would say, unless you're an enthusiast, this is kind of the mainstream Civic to buy at this point, because when you're driving it normal, I was getting 47 miles to the gallon with no effort. Worst case right now, because I'm doing all this crazy stuff and letting it idle, I'm getting 40 miles to the gallon. So it's a pretty incredible car, but I'm going to get into the final thoughts and sum all this up. The conclusion, the Civic is a car for everyone. They have a lower trim level now with the updated 2-liter engine that's very similar to that in the hybrid. They now give you a hybrid car that gets amazing fuel economy and refinement, and it still drives great and has plenty of power. There's literally no sacrifices there. And you have things like the SI and the Type R that give you a manual transmission option for those that like it. And the big thing that really strikes me about this car is its usability, its comfort. It's really good for tall people, and it has amazing storage. It does almost every single thing you want from a car without having an insane price tag. I'm one of those that has become so burned out with this industry where everything has become so expensive and unobtainable. You have to spend so much money to get something that's just a car that you can keep long term. This car checks all those boxes, and that's why it's one of our favorite cars on the planet. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe my channel.